Kia ora, tēnā tātou katoa. Wasn't it a neat night last night? I really enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure catching up with everyone. So wonderful to see everybody again. It's been so long. I'm going to take you through a little bit of a journey of the journey we've been on at Ngā Pōtiki, which is a treaty settlement tribe in Tauranga. Okay, I'll let that sit. For those of you who might have caught my presentation on the first day, I did give some background about our treaty settlement background in Ngā Pōtiki, situated in Tauranga Moana. A key strategy for us post-treaty settlement, just a second. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Everybody's got a different story and we've all approached housing just slightly differently, perhaps nuanced depending on our context. So for us in Tauranga Moana, housing's always been a key strategy. And while I've been in housing professionally for 15 years, the journey for us has really started about 23 years ago when we had our Waitangi Tribunal hearing in 1999. We knew then that housing was going to be a key strategy for transferring treaty benefits to our people. It becomes the fulcrum around which many other benefits spin off from that. And Jen, you covered that well in your kōrero. It's known to us all that if we have stable whānau and steady, affordable, healthy homes, we can start engaging with our whānau, we can start affecting programs, all the positive things that come from that. So for Ngā Pōtiki, it has been a real linchpin as part of our strategy going forward. And we've been dedicated to that cause, which brings us to this present day where we are now a CHIP, we are delivering various programs, and it still remains such an effective strategy. We're seeing it work on the ground. In 2018, we launched a shared equity program. It was unassisted by government. Certainly we had asked government many times to assist in a program like this, and there wasn't much support. So we decided we would launch our own in 2018. We could do that because we took some treaty settlement land and we dedicated that to a mix of commercial development that would assist us to make more money, to invest more money into the tribe, and tribal housing. Why is that important? Because essentially if you don't have these extras, you can't do it. And essentially the iwi takes the hit. These are not commercial models, they're altruistic. And so therefore they're not sustainable. It's not going to work long term. How long can an iwi keep taking and cutting into its own treaty settlement to benefit people to access citizen rights under Article 3? It's not our job. It's the government's job. But we're there to partner, we're willing. You've seen us in the Māori Housing Conference, the willingness there, the eagerness, it's there. But to expect iwi to carry the biggest part of the load is, to me, just a further grievance and treaty breach. But we do it because our people need it and because there are no other pathways that are working. So in 2018, we launched our shared equity. It's true, there's a lot of racism out there. We approached six or eight banks. The responses were quite shocking. Some of the engagement really revealed systemic racism. I'm really pleased to say we found a bank that was Westpac. I think Steve Atkinson at Westpac just is inundated now. But what great operators they are. And we're proud to be in a partnership with them and really grateful that we established that in 2018 because they've been with us along the way and are still with us through our long-term lease program. In 2019, we worked with 10 of our whānau and put them through our shared equity program. We built 10 new homes with these whānau. It was just such an awesome experience. And within 3 years, the first whānau graduated out of the scheme and paid us back. In that same year, another whānau paid down $200,000 because what had been happening, of course, the equity in the properties going up. As part of our engagement with these whānau, we meet with them formally every year and have this conversation. The equity in your house has gone up. Are you in a position to be able to pay us back some of the money? It's our intent and both of our objectives to get the iwi out and to get you into 100% ownership. And it works. It's straight up conversations like that enabling our whānau to stop and think and look, okay, let's do another financial analysis of where I'm at, and if I can afford a bit more, I'll pay down a bit more. And it works like that. It's a very practical approach. We have a whānau who owes probably, I think when I looked, it was under $10,000 to buy themselves out of the scheme. So it is working. So within a matter of 3 years, we were able to start seeing whānau coming into 100% of ownership through the shared equity program. It can work, but it works at great detriment to the iwi. We had to put the sites in through our treaty settlement developments. And there isn't a lot of return. So the thing is that once whānau have completed and bought us out, there is a requirement for them to sell it back to us. But of course, in Tauranga Moana, with the market the way it is, it's become so unaffordable for us to even buy them back. So it's not sustainable. I knew conceptually that could entirely be a possibility when we launched it in 2018. I didn't realise it was going to happen within 2 years. You know, you don't expect that equity is going to rise that quickly to actually make your scheme redundant, and that's what happened. So over those 2 years from 2018 to 2020, we stepped forward and put ourselves forward for the government-funded PHO shared equity approach. Program, I should say. That was interesting. That was an interesting process to go through and see how government were targeting and how they were approaching Māori providers and mainstream providers. I made the decision to jump in the mainstream provider pathway. That's because we were already familiar with the scheme, and because I always value, if you want to learn something, go where the knowledge is. And it made sense for us to just go there and engage in that. But we also had our own shared equity program. So there wasn't a lot of, it was more a collegial approach where we were sharing ideas, and certainly Dom at the Housing Foundation was a great source of wealth, but our program developed quite differently from theirs. It was interesting to me to see how government created these two pathways. In my view, they created it way too early in the process. I think that by siphoning off and focusing on the Māori cohort too early, it separated us from where the thinking was happening. This is just my own personal view. And while it's really good to be able to focus on particular pathways, if you split too early, it actually becomes counterproductive, because while we might try and make our own programs to, by Māori, for us, we can do that all day long. But if we don't have people in the room that know how to do it, we'll still be doing that all day long. So it's important that we do learn from each other, and we build on that, we leverage off the strength of each other. And I mean across Cha and Te Matapihi. And I wonder if the time's come now for us to coalesce again and come back together like this. So I'm hoping that after this is my little tono, that we have a mixer at some point where we bring both of our memberships together, where we can start mixing a bit more. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think I think it's needed at this point. We also need to come together politically, because there are really, really big governmental barriers that are in our way that would pay for us to work together on. After we came through the pilot PHO. I didn't realise that we were actually a pilot PHO, but I guess that's what we were. It is surprising that we then, there was a whole lot going on at that time. By 2020, it was clear that even that PHO program was not going to work. And so I just left it. At that point, that's when government should have said, this is not going to work. That was in 2020. I left it. I had to wait and think and just look at this and see what cost actually it was to the iwi to continue. You know, if it's too altruistic, it's just not going to work. So I waited, and it took a while just to consider what would the alternative be. And we'd been wanting to do leasehold for a long, long time. So I reached out to Julie at Queenstown Lakes Trust. Are you in here, Julie? No? Awesome. It was a really good thing to do. We talked about her model, and she was very generous in sharing that with us and documents. It was clear quite quickly that we were going to do it a bit differently. So, and I'm glad we have, because now it offers two pathways for long-term leasing. Essentially, Queenstown Lakes Trust model is a spec model. That means you build the house and you lease the entire piece to the whānau. Ours is a design and build model. So we engage the whānau, they choose the house they want, they go through that process of building it, and we enable them and build their capacity in that way. And so we have two different pathways, which I think is really good, because I think our pathway is more suitable for iwi, and also we've made inroads in government policy where under the QTLT leasehold model, their subsidy is paid at the end, and they do that because it's a spec model. You pay at the end when everything's built and code of compliance is issued. We don't have the capital to do that and to finance. So our approach is the whānau take on the mortgaging and they start to build the house, and we assist them through that process. I think it's important to say that we do need to be mindful that Westpac, who is the most accommodating and enabling of the banks, is not going to keep rolling out models forever. So they've basically said that these are the last two models. So I'm glad we got ours in, because at least it offers another option for us that's more affordable. I think the process too that we go through where we build the whānau's capacity, they're choosing their house. They're learning about about contracts, legal documents, engaging with lawyers. It's building their capacity. They own it, they design it, they have the buy-in, they look after it. I guess pushing it harder doesn't make it go faster. Long-term lease home ownership program. Yeah, this is just to explain how it works. So we're the lessor, we own the land, we put the land in. It's worth 400,000, each of these sections. You know, it's an awesome saving for our whānau. It enables it immediately. Whānau are the lessee and the mortgagor, the borrower. Westpac comes in as the partner. Government comes in as providing a loan subsidy. It's interesting. So while we're expected to put the land in up front and Westpac provides the mortgage up front, we had to battle with government to put their money up front. While we're putting in 8 million, and of course the bank's putting in their millions and getting paid back, government's putting in 2 million, and they didn't want to put their money in up front. And I said, well, we need it up front. You know we need it up front because we have whānau who don't have $80,000 in the bank for a 20% deposit. for a $400,000 house. So just a real basic thing like that really pissed me off, that they would not put that little bit of money in up front. And I just said, well, we're not going to do it. We're already at the hilt in terms of being altruistic through the program. And pushed back on that point, and I'm glad we did, because just the other day we got good news and the Minister of Finance signed that off, and great, the Crown can put the money in up front, and now our whānau can, and it enables the program, which is great. Our maximum subsidy is $100,000. I think it's going to work. We kicked off our program 4 weeks ago, even though we didn't have the Minister's sign off. You know, we had faith that it was going to come through, and everything has such a long lead-in time. We thought, well, bugger it, we'll just get going anyway. And last week we had our first whānau pre-approved their mortgage, which was great news. And so we're away. It's basically a home for life. It's security for that whānau forever. It's a perpetual lease. Rents capped. They're never going to have to pay exorbitant rents. They're really taken care of. The documentation has been reviewed by the banks, by government, our lease document and our mortgage deed, which at the end of this, once we're officially signed up, we're happy to share all of that, and we're going to do that through Char and Te Matapihi. Oh, come on. Okay. Criteria is interesting. I mean, the cap, 130. What Jen was saying about the basic, the average household income for Māoris, it's just not going to be sustainable under this model. And Kay Saville-Smith on the first day said, it's not about low incomes, it's about high building costs. It is about low incomes too. That's the fact. Our whānau can't afford these blinking houses, and it's probably faster to increase the income of whānau than it is to try and turn around the supply chain and cost of building. So I'd encourage more investment in our whānau wealth and the average income of Māori households. Our whānau, when we run these programs as collectives, so it's not like the bank where you go in as an individual and then we'll pick you up and we'll take you through the process. We have a small team, and it works better for us to do it in cohorts. So in our first cohort, we have 13 whānau, and then we take them through in a supported way through the process. We use workshops. They're great. We introduce them to the bank. We explain and give an overview of course, the scheme. In the workshops, we introduce them to group builders. We introduce them to anything that's going to help them through the process. We assist them with legal advice. We have arranged for discounted legal advice for our whānau. We've discounted the fees by about $1,500 per person, which is a huge savings, and same with the valuation costs. And we're able to do that because we're a cohort and a collective. If we had individuals doing that, then it would be full legal price for advice, full valuation price for doing your valuations. But we are able to get discounts because we have a bit of scale, and it saves whānau, anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 through the process, which shouldn't be scoffed at. It's definitely worth setting these support systems up for whānau. We monitor the whole thing and support our whānau through the process, right through to Code of Compliance and moving in. We continue the engagement with whānau with annual inspections and just engagement to assist them through the housing process. If they want to move out of their home or sell it, they sell it to the iwi. Challenges, well, cost of construction's the big one. Cost of land and the amount that we have to put in is a major sacrifice. Income caps, interestingly, we do have some whānau who are earning over, but the reality is most of them are under, and as a result, we need more subsidy or more input from government. We can't keep filling the gap in between. It just becomes unsustainable for the iwi, it's unattractive. And we have to justify that to our shareholders. The subsidy loan terms with government, 15 years, no interest, it's great, but why can't it be 25? Why can't we line it up with the mortgage period? Overkill on the security. Yeah, how much security do you have to give? I mean, so much risk aversion. We had to get guarantees, first mortgages. These all have flow-on effects in terms of what you can do with your land afterwards. That needs to be reviewed. More of a high trust model is what we need. There's increased admin, and more support needs to be given to our providers to administer all the necessary components of these schemes. It lacks commerciality for us. I don't know anyone. Look, maybe we need to investigate that with some really fine minds looking at it. But it's not sustainable. And to be honest, I did say our scheme was meant to be for 40 places, and I reluctantly accepted to do it for 20 and said, actually, I don't want to do it at all. And why? Because it's unsustainable. How do I justify spending $8 million of our treaty settlement value on 20 whānau when we have hundreds and hundreds of shareholders? So really interesting issues and the conundrum that comes up there. The lack of commerciality is a real big one. It really just needs more investment from the Crown. Oh, gosh. I just wanted to finish by saying a couple of things. I wanted to acknowledge our speakers. I really enjoyed those presentations. Really appreciate your breakdown, Jen. If there's one thing that I've observed over the last few years, it's the divergence, the continuing divergence of where we're going as general providers and Māori providers. And I think it's time we start to find opportunities to come together and coalesce and have some real good discussions from time to time and bring our take back together. I see missed opportunities with the great things that are happening in the mainstream that we could greatly benefit from in our Māori housing pathways and strategies. I don't see enough chip and iwi connections happening. I don't know why, but it would be cool to see that happening too. I really encourage us to think about the future going forward, where we come together on particular issues to be more politically, to strengthen ourselves politically and make some real change going forward. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you, and thank you for the awesome conference, Chris. It's been great.